In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
Atlantis, a supposed sunken continent which, according to some accounts, occupied most of the area of the present Atlantic Ocean. It is dealt with here because of late several accounts purporting to come from certain spirit controls have been published, which give more or less detailed description of the history, life, manner of its inhabitants, and of its interest to theosophists. The question regarding the existence of such a continent is very vexed one indeed. It appears to have originated at an early date, for Plato in his Timaeus states that Atlanteans overran Europe and were only repulsed by the Greeks. It is stated that the Hindu priesthood believed and still believe that it once existed. That there are shadowy legends among the American native races which would seem to assist these beliefs. At the same time, definite proof is conspicuous by its absence. Brezor de Boraborg held that Atlantis was an extension of America, which stretched from Central America and Mexico far into the Atlantic and the Canaries, Madeians, and the Azores being the only remnants which were not submerged. And many similar fantastic theories have been advanced. Donnelly, talking about Ignatius Donnelly, this is the character we've been reading for these 3 going on 4 episodes, proves the existence of such a continent by modern scientific methods and locates the Atlantis of Plato as an island opposite of the entrance of the Mediterranean, a remnant of the lost continent. He thought that Atlantis was a region where men first arose from barbarism to civilization. This is an editorial note by me. This is an interesting analog, an interesting connection to why it always gets attached to America. I fear America of yesterday and not so much America of tomorrow. Looking at current fucking events. Back to the book. And that of all civilized people of Europe and America derived their culture thence, that it was indeed the Antediluvian world of the Garden of Eden. That is but a portion of the entry of Atlantis in the Encyclopedia of Occultism by Lewis Spence. Here, let me do the whole title. It's very extensive. And Encyclopedia of Occultism, a compendium of information on the occult sciences, occult personalities, psychic science, magic, demonology, spiritism, mysticism, and the metaphysics, by Lewis Spence.
Take control of your destiny. Understand your past, put your present in context, and know your future with a twist. Check out the designs and watch the videos about Abracast Tarot Card Deck on Advertise.com. When you order a deck, get a free exclusive bonus tarot card. Also, sign into the mailing list to get a free ebook about the Abracast Tarot Card Deck and other bonus content. Visit the storefront on Abracast.com. The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hey everybody, I'm recording this evening from my sunken lair deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Maybe it's like a domed kingdom, like fucking the Submariner. Maybe it's something like that. When I was a kid, I thought it was the Submariner. I'm like, who's Namor the Submariner? Anyhow, my dad had comic books laying around the house all the time, everywhere. Who am I? I'm John Towers, and this is the Advertise. We're continuing on our investigation into Atlantis this evening. I busted out the Encyclopedia of Occultism because I wanted to kind of catch us up to where we are today. A little couple notes for you guys, especially you Vessel of the Arts people. We really had like a misconnection between a few of you guys for phone calls last month. So I owe quite a few of you some phone time because of this. Our work schedules and stuff just didn't seem to line up. So I'm going to keep trying. If I owe you phone time, it's coming. I promise. I'm not ducking it. I had, if you're paying attention to the operation of the wand videos, you know that I was on vacation for a little bit. So anyhow, here we go. So what are we talking about? Where are we at? Let's get some context here. This is part 4 of our Atlantis episodes, our Atlantis series, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, by Ignatius Donnelly, published in 1882. And we're continuing on directly from the last episode, which is basically talking about Atlantis being described in the in the Bible, the Old Testament, and other ancient traditions. So if you skipped 3 and are right here on to 4, that's kind of the reason that I read the parts of the Encyclopedia of Occultism that I did. But however, you should just go back and listen to the last one anyway. Jesus, time is moving so fast. Like last month when I recorded Atlantis part 3, like the only thing we were worrying about is the pandemic. Now we got the pandemic and the pending Marxist overthrow, the rewriting of history, a la 1984, and China. So try to keep track of all of this stuff. So we're just going to get into it. I need to unplug from all of that, all this coming insurrection nonsense. So, just to like to take a second to wish happy birthday to my wife. My wife's birthday is tomorrow. We're eating dinner at a fancy restaurant. I got her a sweet set of, this is going to sound bizarre, a sweet set of bird houses. She's been obsessed with the birds in our backyard since the pandemic lockdown. So I went up bought her like a neighborhood worth of bird houses. And I also got her a tarot card reading at the witch store down our little witch store. And I also got her a shamanistic shadow work session. So I think she's pretty excited about all that stuff. Read into that as you may. Okay. Atlantis in the Old Testament and ancient traditions. Here we go. The story of Samson is paralleled with the history of the hero named Zipanka, told of the Popol Vuh. The Popol Vuh, the good old Popol Vuh, who, being captured by his enemies and placed in a pit, pulled down the building in which his captors had assembled and killed 400 of those motherfuckers. They were giants in those days, says the Bible. There's a great deal of the Central American history is taken up with the doings of an ancient race of giants called the Quinames. I wonder if this has to do with what are they called? The Toltec heads? The Tolmec heads? They have these giant boulder-sized heads just buried down there in South America. That's weird. I should have done a little bit more research about that. This parallelism parallelism runs through 100 particulars. Both the Jews and the Mexicans worshipped towards the east, and both called the south the right hand of the world. Both burnt incense towards the four corners of the earth. I don't like that he's putting the Jews and the Mexicans here in a past tense. Even in the late 1800s, bro, they were still around. They're still around. So they both they both worship towards the east. They both call the south the right hand of the world. They both burned incense towards the four corners of the earth. Confession of sin and sacrifice of atonement were common in both people. God, I got this thing I'm working on called intersectional ecumenicism. It's gonna get me in a lot of trouble. I know I keep teasing it and bringing it up, but this line: the confession of sin and sacrifice of atonement were common in both people. That's what it's all about, bros. Both were punctilious about the washing and oblations. Both believe in devils, and both were afflicted with leprosy. Both consider women who died in childbirth as worthy of honor as soldiers who fell in battle. Both punish adultery with the stoning to death. David leaped and danced before the ark of the Lord, and so did the Mexican monarchs before their idols. Both had an ark abiding place of an invisible God, and both had species of serpent worship. That's an interesting conclusion. Compare our representation to the Great Serpent Mound in Adams County, Ohio. Ohio's in the house, whoop, whoop, with the following description of the Great Serpent Mound in Scotland. Serpent worship in the west. Some additional light appears to have been thrown upon this ancient serpent worship in the west by recent archaeologist explorations of Mr. John S. Finney. In Scotland, Mr. Finney has just investigated a curious earthen mound in Glenfeechan, Argyllshire. Referred to him, that's where they make those socks, by the way. Argyllshire referred to him by the late meeting of the British Association of Edinburgh as being in the form of a serpent or Sauron, not the White Wizard. Sauron as in dinosaur on. The mound, says the Scotsman, is the most perfect one. It's the most perfect one. It's a tremendous mound. It's the best mound ever built. It's the most perfect one. The head is of a large cairn, and the body is of the earthen reptile, 300 feet long, and at the center of the head there were evidences where Mr. Finney first visited of an altar having been placed there. This position with regard to Ben Curacan is most remarkable. The three peaks are seen over the length of the reptile when a person is standing on the head or cairn. The shape can only be seen as to be understood when I'm so fucking Freudian slip. I'm so in tuned with saying locked down. The shape can only be seen so as to be understood when looked down upon from an elevation. As the outline cannot be understood unless the whole of it can be seen. This isn't the most perfect. It's tremendous. It's the best. It's the most perfect one. Ask anyone, they'll tell you. When the spectator is on the head of the animal form or on the lofty rock to the west of it, the mound corresponds almost entirely with one 700 feet long in America, an account of which was lately published. After careful survey, Mr. Squire, that's Billy Squire, stroke me, Billy Squire. The altar towards the head. In each case agrees. The American mound, Three Rivers. Oh, that's interesting. Hey, Three Rivers. Also, objects of worship with the ancients were evidently identified. The number 3 was a sacred number in all ancient mythologies. The sinuous winding and articulations of the verbal spinal arrangements are anatomically perfect in the Argyllshire mound. The gentleman present with Mr. Finney during his investigation state that beneath the cairn forming the head of the animal was found a megalithic chamber in which was a quantity of charcoal and burnt earth and charred nutshells, a flint instrument beautifully and minutely serrated at the edge, and burnt bones, the back or the spine of the serpent, which is already has been stated as 300 feet long. It was found beneath peat moss to be formed by careful adjustments of stones, and the formation of which probably prevented the structure from being obliterated by time or weather. We find there's a serpent mound in Ohio. I don't know if it's the same one that the guy was talking about earlier, but it's amazing. These pre-Columbian Adena people here. So I live in Pittsburgh. So if you do Google Maps and zoom into Pittsburgh, and I guess it depends on where you look, but if you look, say, at the Ohio River leaving Pittsburgh, and you look on I believe the way that it will show up on Google Maps is the uppermost shore, the northernmost shore of the Ohio River. I could be wrong on that. I could be flip-flopped. Dyslexia. But just out of the city, leaving the city down the Ohio River, you're going to find a little place, like a little township or whatever, called McKees Rocks, and there's an Andea culture there pre-Columbia. Where they were mound builders down there on the flats of the river. They call them, or they used to call them, the McKees Rocks flats. And when Europeans started settling this area, they started to dam up the rivers to make the rivers taller. I feel like I've been talking about this a lot. I know I talked about it in the videos, the water videos, and all this. So just thinking like, what could still be under that Ohio River there in what was the McKees Rocks flats, like where these where the mound builders were. It's interesting. Anyhow, I'm sorry for that digression. I feel like I get looser on the Patreon episodes. Let me know if that bothers you. If you're tuning in to listen to like my normal level of ranting and raving, and it bothers you that I'm a little less formal here, I don't know if that bothers anybody. No one's ever mentioned it before, but I feel like it's really noticeable. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what am I talking about? Like I'm totally formal. We find a striking likeness between the works of the Stone Age in America and Europe, as shown in the figures here given. Obviously, I can't show you the figures. The same singular custom which is found amongst the Jews and the Hindus for a man to raise up seed for his deceased brother by marrying his widow, we found among the Central American nations. No one but the Jewish high priest may ever enter the holiest of holies. The holiest of holies. A similar custom obtained in Peru. Both ate the flesh of the sacrifices of atonement. Both poured the blood of the sacrifice on the earth, and they sprinkled it. They marked persons with it, and they smeared it upon the walls and the stones. The Mexican temples, like the Jewish, faced east. As among the Jews, the ark was a sort of portable temple in which the deity was supposed to be continually present. So among the Mexicans, the Cherokees, and the Indians, Mycoacans and Hondurans, the ark was held in the highest veneration and was considered an object too sacred to be touched by any of the priests. The Peruvians believed that the rainbow was a sign that the earth would not again be destroyed by a deluge. Okay. We talk a lot about that. Well, yeah, I'm writing the entries to describe my deck of tarot cards I designed. And I was just writing about this, the rainbow of the Noahic covenant last night. The Jewish custom of laying the sins of the people upon the heads of an animal and turning him into the wilderness had its counterparts among the Mexicans, who, to cure a fever, formed a dog of maize paste, corn paste, and left it on the roadside, saying the first passerby would carry away the illness. Jacob's ladder had its duplicate in the vine of a tree of the Obijues, which led from the earth into heaven, up and down, which the spirits passed. Both the Jews and Mexicans offered water to a stranger that it might wash his feet. Both ate the dust in token of humility. Both anointed with oil, both sacrificed prisoners, both periodically separated the women, and both agreed in the strong and universal idea of uncleanliness connected with that period. Both believed in the occult power of water. Both practiced baptism. Then the Mexican midwife gave birth to the child, the taste of water, putting her moistened finger in its mouth, and said, "Take this thou hast to live on the earth and grow and flourish through this." And we get all things that support existence on the earth and receive it with moistened fingers. She touched the breast of the child and said, "Behold the pure water that washes and cleanses thy heart, that removes all filthiness. Receive it. May the goddess see good to purify and cleanse thy heart." And then the midwife poured water upon the head of the child, saying, "O my grandson, my son, take this water of the Lord and of the world, which is thy life, invigorating and refreshing, washing and cleansing. I pray that this celestial water, blue and light blue, may enter into thy body and there live. I pray that it may destroy in thee and put away from thee all things evil and adverse, and were given thee before the beginning of the world. Wheresoever thou art in this child, O thou hurtful thing, begone. Leave it, put thyself apart. For now does it live anew. Anew it is born. And again it is purified and cleansed. Now again it is shaped and engendered by our mother and the goddess of water." This excerpt is, I just need to feel like I need to call it out. It says Bancroft's Native Races, Volume 3, page 372. So if anyone has access to this thing, let me know. Wow. I wish I would. Ooh, man. This is like water of the art stuff, right? Listen to this thing. She's using water to exercise this newborn baby, which is exactly what I did. Well, I didn't exercise the newborn baby, but I exercised the water. Well, first, I don't know. I don't want to get all into it. There was no baby involved. I feel like I just need to call that out.
Are you interested in the occult, history, conspiracy, and violence? Learn more at Advertise.com. Find more episodes on this topic. Sign up for the mailing list for bonus content. Get access to the show archive and visit the storefront for tarot cards, merch, and books. Learn more at Advertise.com.
All right, back to it. Here we may find many resemblances to the Christian ordinance of baptism. The pouring of the water on the head, the putting of the finger in the mouth. What? I've been baptized a few times, and no motherfucker ever did that. The touching of the breast, the new birth, the washing away of original sin. The Christian rite as we know it was not a Christian invention, but borrowed from ancient times, from the great storehouse of the Asiatic traditions and beliefs. The Mexicans hung up on the heads of their sacrificed enemies. This was also a Jewish custom. And the Lord said unto Moses, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before the Lord against the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, slay ye every one of his men that were joined into Baal Peor. That happened in Numbers. The Scythians, Herodotus tells us, scalped their enemies and carried the scalps at the pommel of their saddles, and Jews probably scalped their enemies too. Probably so. That's what a Lieutenant Aldo Raines would have said. If you join my unit, you incur a debt. That debt is 100 Nazi scalps, and I want them scalps. Maybe that's the secret of Inglourious Bastards, is actually a retelling of Atlantis. But God shall wound the heads of his enemies, and the hairy scalps of such as one as goeth on still in his trespasses. That's a psalm. The ancient Scandinavians practiced scalping when Harold Harefoot seized his rival Alfred with 600 followers. He had them maimed, blinded, hamstrung, scalped, or emboweled. I don't know, what would you rather? Herodotus describes the Scythian mode of taking a scalp. This seems like the best way to do it, right? This is what I saw in the movies, in those cowboy and Indian movies growing up. He makes a cut around the head near the ears and takes the skull out. This is precisely the Indian custom. The more scalps a man has, says Herodotus, the more highly he is esteemed among them. The Indian scalp lock is found on the Egyptian monuments as one of the characteristics of the Japhethic Libyans, who shaved all heads except one lock in the middle. Interesting. The Manichutes of Tartary wear a scalp lock, as do the modern Chinese. China. Byron describes the head of the dead Tartars under the walls of Corinth devoured by wild dogs. Quote, crimson and green were the shawls of their wear, and each scalp had a long tuft of hair, and the rest was shaven and bare, unquote. Well, I'm not going to criticize the poetry of Byron. The resemblances are so striking and so numerous that they repeated attempts to have been made to prove that the inhabitants of America are the descendants of the Jews. Some have claimed that they represented the lost tribes of the people, but the Jews, never a maritime or immigrating people, they formed no colonies, and it is impossible to believe as has been asserted, that they left their flocks and herds and marched across the whole face of Asia, took ships and sailed across the greatest of the oceans to a continent of the existence of which they had no knowledge. We seek the origin of these extraordinary coincidences. The opinions and habits must go far back to the time of the lost tribes. We must seek it in the relationship of the Jews and the family of Noah, in the identity of the Noahic race destroyed in the deluge with the people of the drowned Atlantis. Nor need it surprise us to find the traditions perpetrated for thousands upon thousands of years, especially among people having a religious priesthood. So I'm just going to stop and interject some bullshit here. If this stuff is interesting to you, all this Jews, Indians, giants stuff, I urge you to go to the website abercast.com and check out the featured topic link and find all of the American sermon stuff. I can't even remember how many episodes there were, but at one time I did the American sermon, and we got into all of this stuff and way more that this guy's talking about America being involved in this stuff. I love all that American sermon stuff. The essence of religion is conservatism. Obviously, this isn't written in 1880 something. I don't think he's talking about what we hear when we hear the word conservatism. 1882. This is not Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity conservatism. The essence of religion is conservatism. Little is invented, nothing perishes, change comes from without. And even when one religion is supplanted by another, its gods live on as the demons of the new faith. Or they pass into folklore and fairy stories of people. We see Wotan, a hero in America, become the god Odin or Wodan in Scandinavia. We see his worship as a god dies out and Odin survives. The wild huntsman of the Harts. And in the Robin Hood, Odin of the popular legend, Harlequin of France becomes the Harlequin of our pantomimes, and William Tell never existed. He is a myth, a survival of the sun god Apollo, Indra, who was worshipped on the altars of Atlantis. Nothing here, but it doth change into something rich and strange. The rites of circumcision. Oh, this is what I wanted to know. The rites of circumcision date back to the first days of Phoenicia, Egypt, and the Cushites. It too was probably an Atlantean custom invented in the Stone Age. Imagine being circumcised by a rock. Tens of thousands of years have passed since Stone Age and the age of copper and bronze and iron bear invented, and yet to this day the Hebrew rabbi performs the ceremony of circumcision with a stone knife. Okay, well, I guess for all of you Jewish people that just heard me say that, you're like, yeah, that's the way it's fucking done. I don't know. I'm thinking a stone knife in 2020 is a lot different than the stone knife of fucking ancient times. It feels like we have like lasers and like diamond cutters to make it a little bit less caveman-ish. Frothingham says, speaking of St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome, into what depths of antiquity the ceremonies carried me back. The mysteries of Elysius to the sacrificial rites of Phoenicia. The boys swung the censers as censers had been swung in the adoration of Bacchus. All hail Bacchus. The girdle, the cassock of the priest came from Persia. The veil and the tonsure were from Egypt. The alb and the chasuble were prescribed by Numa Pompilius. The stone was borrowed from the official who used to throw it on the back of the victim that was to be sacrificed. The white surplice was the same as described by the Juvenal and the Ovid. Although it is evident that many thousands of years must have passed since the men who wrote in Sanskrit in the northeastern India would have dwelled in Europe. Yet to this day they preserve among their ancient books maps and descriptions of the western coast of Europe and even of England and Ireland. And when we find among a fuller knowledge of the vexed question of the source of the Nile than possessed by any nation the world 25 years ago. This perpetuation of forms and beliefs is illustrated by the fact that the formulas used in the Middle Ages in Europe to exorcise evil spirits were Assyrian words, imported probably thousands of years before from the magicians of the Chaldea. When the European conjurer cried out to the demon, "Hilk, Hilk, Bisha, Bisha," he had no idea that he was repeating the very word of the people who had perished ages before. That signified, "Go away, evil one, evil one." Our circle of 360 degrees, the division of a chord of the circle equal to the radius of 60 equal parts called degrees. The division of these into 60 minutes, the minute into 60 seconds, and the second into 60 thirds. The division of the day into 24 hours, of each into 60 minutes, each into 60 seconds. The division of the week into 7 days, and the very order of the days all have come down to us from Chaldeo-Assyrians. And these things will probably be perpetuated among our posterity to the last syllable of recorded time. We need not be surprised, therefore, to find the same legends and the same beliefs cropping out amongst the nations of Central America and the people of Israel. Nay, it should teach us to regard the book of Genesis with increased veneration as a relic dating from the most ancient days of man's history on earth. Its roots cross the great ocean. I tried to put like a weird spin on it. I don't think it turned out. Its roots cross the great ocean. Every line is valuable. A word, a letter, an accent may throw light upon the gravest problems of the birth of civilization. The vital conviction which during the 1,000 years at all times pressed home upon the Israelites was that they were a chosen people, selected out of the multitude of the earth to perpetuate the great truth that there was but one God, an illimitable, omnipotent, paternal spirit who rewarded the good and punished the wicked. In contradistinction from the multifarious subordinate animals, the bestial demigods of the other nations of the earth, this sublime monotheism could only have been an outgrowth of a high civilization, for man's first religion is necessary. A worship of stocks and stones. The history teaches us that History teaches us that the gods decrease in number as man increases in intelligence. I need to write that. That just took me off my feet. God teaches us that gods decrease. intelligence increases. It was probably in Atlantis that monotheism was first preached. The Proverbs of Ptahhotep, the oldest book of the Egyptians, show that the most ancient colony from Atlantis received the pure faith from the motherland at the very dawn of history. The book preached the document of one God, the rewarder of the goods, the punisher of the wicked. In the early days, the Egyptians worshipped one God only, the maker of all things. Without beginning and without end, the last of the priests preserved this doctrine and taught it privately to a select few. The Jews took up this great truth when the Egyptians dropped it, and over the heads and over the ruins of Egypt, Chaldea, Phoenicia, Greece, Rome, and India. This handful of poor shepherds, ignorant, debased, and despised, have carried down our own times a conception that can only have originated in the highest possible state of human society. I'm going to skip a block here to get through this. If the spirit of which the universe is but an expression of whose frame the stars are, the infinite molecules, can be supposed to interfere with the laws of matter and reach down into the doings of men, would it not be to save from a wreck and the waste of time the most sublime fruit of civilization of the drowned Atlantis? A belief in the one only just God, the Father of all life and the imposer of moral obligations. Sweet. So, hey, I'm John. This is the Abercast. Thank you guys for your support. Like, so much. Thank you guys for your support. We've onboarded quite a few people here in the last month or so, and I want to just say welcome aboard. And again, with the phone stuff, please be patient. I really do try as hard as I can to get on the phone with you Vessel of the Art people as every month. So I'll be sending out new rounds of emails to accomplish that goal. So, I mean, some people just don't write back, and I understand that, and that's fine. You know, that's cool with me. That's fine. But if you're like, I signed on, I need my fucking phone time, then, you know, I try my hardest to make it happen. With that being said, I want to talk a few moments about the newsletter. Check out because I post the newsletter and the Patreon thing for everybody. And even if you're like, I get all the bullshit on Patreon anyways, I don't need the newsletter. Just start checking out the newsletter, because we have the Vessel of the Art supporter, Matt. Matt, by virtue of his job, I guess I could say, pays attention to global politics, and he's been curating a list of articles and stuff on these things that are that he and I, both of us, feel like are important. So if you usually see the link for the newsletter and pass it, just take a second to jump in there and check out Matt's list. I believe it's like called the Game of Global Domination or something like that. So it's interesting, and I want to thank Matt for all of that stuff, for taking his time and providing those links for us. They're very important and very insightful as well. I don't want to dox him too much, so but whatever. If you get in there and look, you'll get an insight to what he's looking at and why it's important. All right, yeah, okay. So I'm John. This is the Abercast, and thank you guys. I don't have any plans for Atlantis. Maybe I could get some Edward Casey stuff, and we could do some New Agey Atlantis Sleeping Prophet stuff. I don't know. Maybe it'll just change. Maybe we'll do Count Saint Germain next. Anyhow, I'm John. Thank you so much for the support. I really do appreciate it, and I hope these kind of like looser episodes are good. I hope you enjoy them. If not, let me know, please. Thank you guys, and I'll play this, but we only out of habit. Just click off now. You don't want to hear this.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed the show. Please send an email or find us on social media and let us know what you think about the show. We would appreciate it if you would give us a 5-star rate and review wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can find Stigmata Studios, graphic, novels, and comic books at Advertise.com.